Hi my lovely people. I am going to show you how to make this butterfly on a rock. How to paint it. This one's already been finished and it's been glazed. Glossed. Spray glossed. I sprayed the acrylic sealer. ALEEN'S acrylic sealer gloss finish on this one. It's fast drying, non-yellow, seals and protects for indoor and outdoor projects. I definitely know it's rain resistant. I don't know if it's waterproof. It's definitely water resistant. And yeah, got that. And I'll be using this paintbrush for the background. It's a thicker thick bristle. I don't know if you can hear that. It's pretty thick. And here's my pickle jar of water. And I'll also be using a very, very, very fine tipped paintbrush. So 2 paintbrushes, some water, and some paints. The paint that I am using is the Apple Barrel brand, and I get it from Walmart. If you go by me, if you walk in, it's 50 cents. If you order it for pickup, it's more expensive. If you order it for delivery, it's more expensive. So 50 cents for the matte ones. There's ones that are like satin and a little bit more fancy, but I'm perfectly good with the matte. I think it turns out nice. The satin and the gloss are glossy, but when I spray it with this gloss stuff anyways to seal it, it turns it glossy. So I'm doing this one. I already got my palette started. I got these plastic ones, like 3 for a couple dollars, again at Walmart. I'm a big Walmart fan for the stuff. Walmart, I think it was $6, give or take $1. And the fine brushes, there's 10 in a pack, and I think it was $3-4. And I use these all the time. Especially, there's 2 of them that are the tiniest ones in there that I use the most. This one's old. It's called the Contemporary Crafts 245B flat, but it's so old I don't even know if they'll have it anymore. Any kind of stenciling brush I'm sure would be fine. So here's my rock. I chose a smooth one and a round one for this one. You could play with all sorts of shapes, and then you just have to determine which way you want up and down. This one's easy to determine because it's circular. Excuse me as I adjust. So for the background, I put a couple of different blues, light blue, dark blue, and some white on my paintbrush. And I'm going to just start dabbing all over. Now it would be nice if I had a larger paintbrush, just do it faster, but I'm okay with this. And I'm going to paint the entire background. And don't put a lot on there because we don't want just enough to cover the rock and get in the spaces. Because then if it's very blotchy, it takes longer to dry, and we're going to work right away right into it. You just don't need too much paint. I think the mistake that I see that is the most extravagant mistake is putting too much paint on the rock, trying to cover up everything because these paints are a little bit translucent. So that's all. You can do if you want, you don't have to do it where it's coated, and you can do a solid more blue. If you would like it to be less streaky, use a softer brush. And this one's needs to be washed off, so I'm not going to show you, but a softer brush will make it less streaky. I like doing it like this because, sorry if the video is shaking, my arm's hitting it. You see less mistakes. I'm going to do this up for a moment so that I don't hit my elbow on the camera and make it shaky more. I like having the darks and lights pop through. So I'm going to redo this a little bit because when I made it soft and not dabby, that's the technical term, you know, dabby, I lost the dimension of the different colors. So that's step one. Now we're pretty much done with this paint until the very end. So, or this paintbrush. Pretty much done till the very end, so we can rinse that one out. That's my mom calling me. I'll hang up on her. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. I already started. I don't want to start over because I already had to start over because the video time ran out. So this is, I just wanted to rinse this off. Okay, now I have a bunch of colors in there already. So we're done with the blue for now. And we're going to start with a black. And we want one of these very, very fine tip ones. And find one that's very pointed. I'm going to do this one a little, instead of sideways, just figure out which direction. So think of this as like halfway through from up and down. And this is halfway through from up and down. I'm going to start the head. If those are quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. So halfway, halfway. You could see the quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to start the head about in the middle, but a little bit down into the third quadrant. So I make a dot, and then a long oval, and then a tinier oval. So I have a rag right here that I'm wiping the paintbrush off, so whenever you see me go like this, it's because I'm just wiping the paintbrush off of excess paint. I'm going to dip it into the black again, and we're putting a very, very small dot on there. I'm going to make the first wing. First part of the wing. And just know I get paint on me. It washes off your hands well. It doesn't wash off of clothes well. In fact, I haven't been able to get it off my clothes. So if you have a pointer on how to get it out of all of the clothes I have paint on, let me know. And then I'm going to do the second one. Your shape doesn't have to be exactly as what I'm doing. This is just the shape that I happen to like. So that's one wing, 2 sections of the first wing. And see on the second one, or I put one that's like kind of in the background here and out here. That's what I'm going to work on next. So I'm going to dab my paint, and I'm just going to do a bump out, and I'm going to make it a little thicker here, just like I made it thicker here. And then I'm going to start from the center and do another bump out, and make it a little thicker. I'm going to wipe my paintbrush off a little. I wipe it off because I just feel like it gets excess buildup. And then I'm going to dip it again. Small, tiny, tiny, tiny dip, as small as you can. Because we're going to do the antlers. And we're going to start inside the head and pull up away from the head. And same thing with the legs I noticed in a picture one time I counted the legs, they have 6 of them. So I happen to do 6 small little legs. In the first 2, I do a little hook on it. See that? Hook. Hook. And then the other 2. Or the other 4, I just kind of randomly place. I don't know what's proper, where their proper location is, but I think that's good enough. So because I'm doing this one, the theme of a yellow, orangey, red one, I have put on my palette, my plastic palette, red, orange, and yellow. The yellow I used is a real yellow. There's a lighter yellow up here that I'm not going to use. The orange is pumpkin orange, and the red, I believe, is flag red. There's my flag red. Flag red. I'm going to put a little more on there. It's a bright red. I like using the bright colors for this. I was trying to prop up the butterfly so you could see it better. A little bit of a ruckus. Okay. So I'm going to start off with yellow and then red. So see how I started off in the inside with this yellow and then the red out here? There's some like kind of orange in the middle. So what I'm going to do is start off with the yellow and red first. So, oops. Oh, this is when you want to rinse out your brush from the black. Otherwise it's going to streak. See, and you can see on my palette when I wiped some off, the black was in there. Wipe it off really good. And actually, we're going to wind up getting some black smeared in here anyways, because this paint that we just did isn't very dry. But that's okay because we need a layer. So I'm going to start with the yellow here. And I'm just going to start filling in. These first 2 big sections of yellow wing. And they're pretty transparent, so you're going to see some of the blue through it. Don't worry about that, because as we work through the project, you won't see that. And if you go out of boundaries on the black, or you know you kind of go too far out, or like I just did an example there, I kind of went out further than what I wanted to. Don't worry about it, because we're going to detail it a little bit in the end. So just any mistakes that you make like that, I'll show you how I'm covering it up and showing what I'm doing. For example, some of this black out here, I don't know if you can see it, but some of this black, it looks like a very rugged line. And I got some black on the outside there. Don't worry about that. I got some black on the inside here. Don't worry about that. We'll cover it up, and we'll figure out. I'll show you a way of just covering it up and working with it. So I got the yellow down. Now I'm going to take some red on my brush. I didn't bother washing it. I just wiped my brush off. And again, we don't want a lot of paint. And it's going to be a little bit translucent. And I'm going to fill in the rest of all of the wings that fill in the blue. Any blue that I see within the wings. And feel free to layer over the yellow. I just put a little bit more red on top because I like to make it as bright as possible. And again, it's going to be a little bit translucent, so you're going to see a bit of the yellow, potentially see a little bit of the yellow through it. Don't worry about that yet. Just don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to wipe this off with my rag pretty well. I don't even need to rinse it yet. And I'm going to start with the flower as that part of it dries a little bit. So to start with the flower, I'm going to take a dab of the black. And just underneath and off to the side of its legs, I'm going to make a circle, an oval, very thin one. That's why we want very little dot of paint on the tip of the brush, is you have more control over it. And if you have to keep wiping, like this is what I'm wiping it off, the paintbrush, and then I re-dip. And from there, I'm going to draw teardrop shapes around it. Starting at the bottom. So start at the bottom, making the teardrops. Because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do when I get to the top. And just make them to the side. And I want the flower to be as if it's facing upwards more, but also towards us. So once you get to this point, do a half a circle. From the middle of the original oval, you do a half a circle from the center of that original oval to the first petal you drew, and same thing. A half a circle from the center of that, the opposite direction. See how it's kind of facing up? And just wiping some of the paint off. Just start making the stem. Okay, now we're going to rinse the paintbrush off. Actually, we didn't even need to rinse that off. Now see how I smudged the black there? I don't know if you can see that, but I smudged it. That's okay. I'll deal with that later. And if you have any of those smudges, don't worry about it. We'll deal with it later. So we want the brush to be pretty clean still, and put a little tiny dab of black on there again. And again, we're going to make just an organic shape of like a teardrop again, raindrop, whatever you want to call it. Starting off with the tip towards the bottom. We're going to do one on the big one on the small one. And depending on how yours is shaped. So for instance, if you see this one, I have two that are starting off almost at the bottom, or towards the body, and then one on top. So just depending on the way your butterfly is shaped, you do that, what you can fill in. And I just suggest don't force too many of these raindrops. So there's the second one. I'm going to do as if the second one was right here on the wing in the back. What I just did now is I just put a little bit of the black on to define the wing a little bit so that you guys could see it more. And I'm going to turn this around a little. I'm going to take the black again. I'm going to wipe it off the paintbrush, and I'm going to dip it in the black again and start clean again, because I find reloading the brush with fresh paint works better. And I'm going to put a shape there and a shape there on the back wing. I don't know, maybe I'll make a tiny circle there. See how mine don't match this one exactly? Because each time you make them, the shapes of the wings aren't going to be exactly alike. And that's what the beauty of all of these are. All the pieces are going to be a little bit different from the next. Okay, so this time we really do want to rinse off our brush really good, because we're not going to be working with black for a little bit. So rinse it off, dry it out. Make sure you dry the brush after you rinse them each time, because otherwise the paint gets too watery and they smear and they're even more translucent and such. So here I stuck it, loaded it with some of the orange now. Excuse me. And between the red and the yellow, I'm going to fill in and make it a little bit, and I'm going to put some orange on there. Again, don't worry if you go out of boundaries and those lines. I know I am. We'll work on that detail later. So the shapes we made are guiding us right now. So just kind of in the center and working our way and making some orange. I don't really want any sharp lines. So I'll round them off. I'm going to do that at the bottom too. In between the red and the yellow. Put some orange in there. Okay, and here is where we're going to stop for a second, and we're going to pull it away from us, and we should do this more often. Arm's length away, and we're going to look at it from a little bit of a distance, see what it's looking like, because sometimes we can work so closely that we forget to look at a distance, which helps us put things into perspective sometimes. So I'm going to rinse it off a little bit and grab some of the yellow. And I'm going to start relayer the yellow over the original yellow and even into the orange a little bit. That's okay. If they blend a little bit, that's a good thing. Okay, and what we're going to also do, besides put it over the original, not inside of the raindrops. We weren't putting anything inside the raindrops shapes yet. Now we are. So we're going to take a little bit of the yellow, and we're going to start at where the red is. And we're going to do opposite direction. So we're going to put a little bit of the yellow on top of these dots. Not dots, raindrops. Just a tiny bit of yellow on top of them. Towards the red. And then we're going to wipe that off, and we're going to take the red, and we're going to fill in the rest of the raindrops with the red, and the red's near the yellow, closer to the yellow. Oh, I forgot to put the yellow in this one. Oops. We're going to take the red. So I'm going to show you on the original. So on these, if you can see, the wing starts off yellow and goes to red, but the raindrops go from red to yellow. So I do opposite. Yellow to red, red to yellow. Yellow to red, red to yellow. So I'm using the same colors, I'm just swapping them out to just give it a little bit more dimension. I made that up myself. I like it. Now I'm just going to put a little bit more orange. Outside of the dots. And I'm going to put a little bit more yellow inside the dots, the raindrops. More yellow inside the raindrops on the away from the other yellow. And there was another one right here that I put some yellow in. And I'm going to grab some red and I'm going to make the red a little bit more brighter along the outside of the raindrops. And now we're kind of to the point where we're trying to layer it to get the brightness, and layering the paint over the same colors over and over and over again just to brighten the colors up. And get rid of some of that translucent look to it where the blue's coming through still from the background. And as we do that, we're also, so now I'm grabbing the orange, we're also blending them into the next color. And again, we're not worrying too much about the borders. Oh, I went over that dot. So now we no longer even see the black line. That's okay, because now that we have the colors popping significantly more, so now that we have the colors popping significantly more, we're going to wipe our paintbrush off and dab it in the black. And now here is where we're going to re-outline the black of the wing. Don't want to put too much black on it, or too much paint on your paintbrush. So as we do that, it corrects, we're correcting any of the color that might have gone into the black portion. So it's starting to define, look more detailed, more crisp. See, I still have black out there a little bit further than what I want, but I'll correct that black that got into the blue once it dries a little later. So I'm going to take the black and now I'm going to redefine the raindrops inside the wing. Each time before I reload, I'm wiping off my brush to keep it from building up. Oh, light went out. So I'm going to redip it, and I'm going to redefine those lines again. And you can see it's becoming a lot cleaner of a look in comparison to where it was before. So anytime I wind up putting too much paint in a section, I kind of try and wipe it clear. Yeah, I'm spreading it out a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna rinse out my brush. And now this is really where like detailed work. So if you think it's good enough where it's at, stop. At one point you gotta stop. Because you can keep working it and working it and working it like I do. But at one point it's gonna just have to be good enough and carry on. And when you go through the whole picture, it starts to pull together and you don't notice all of the small little details that you're going to notice more than other people are going to notice. I'm just going into the color right now. And I'm being careful not to go into the black now. And I'm just touching up where maybe even the black I've gone over into the color too much. So as I'm making the color a little bit more vibrant, I'm also doing little tiny touch-ups. I'm not making as big of brush strokes now. A lot smaller. Because I don't want to go back again and do the black over again. So now I'm starting to be more careful. And maybe you were careful before me and you're finished and you're just waiting for me. Thank you for your patience. If you're waiting, I'm going to be done in just a second, so go grab a coffee or a drink of water or something. Oh, there, no, that's good enough. I'm going to stop there. So on the main part of the wing, I have yellow, orange, red. On the teardrops, I only have yellow and red. But if you look at it, there's quite a bit of orange that pops through on them, like the monarch butterfly. It's very red, orange, yellowy. Very dynamic in its color. Okay, so now we're going to rinse off our brush. Wipe it dry. I'm going to take some of the yellow paint and I'm going to fill the flower center yellow. I'm going to wipe the paint off. We need some white. I had some white here already, but I think it's drying up a little bit. And when it starts to dry up a bit, it gets a little clunky. So every now and then you just gotta if you find your paint's getting clumpy, you need some more new paint because this stuff right here is even starting to dry up on me a little bit, especially with this light going down on it. So tiny bit of white, and I'm going to fill in the petals of the flower. And this time I'm going to make really tiny strokes just so I can avoid not having to go through the outline of the black again, which I don't think I'm going to do. There we go. I'm going to dip it in the black, and I'm going to make another flower, let's say, facing. So this one's facing up. I'm going to make a flower that's facing the actual butterfly here. Saying, come pollinate me. I wiped the brush, and I made an oval. And again, I'm going to start off with these of a raindrop type shape. And I'm only going to do them halfway through because once I get halfway through with those shapes, I'm going to do the same thing. Do the half circle from the center of that original oval to the one side petal, center of the oval to the other side of the petal. And let me show what it looks like. I'm going to put the yellow on the inside, again on the center. I'm wiping off my brush. I'm going to put some white in it. And I'm going to fill in the white, the petals with the white. Okay, while we're waiting for those to dry, we'll wipe off your paintbrush and we're going to work on the dots. Now that the black has dried a bit on the wings, the dots. So on this one, on the outside I did yellow and then I switched it to orange. On another one I did white and I switched it to yellow. This one, I think I'm going to switch it from, instead of yellow to an orange, I'm going to switch it from white to yellow, just to switch it up a little bit. So because my point is actually not so pointy right now, it's kind of separating the point on the paintbrush, I'm just going to wash it off a little bit and dry it. And I'll start reloading this new white that I put on my palette. And just the tip with white. And I'm going to start at the thicker point, because the more paint that's on your paintbrush, the bigger the dots. And as I lose the paint on my paintbrush, the dots are going to get smaller, which works. It's almost like I'm starting off practicing the small dots on the thicker part of the wing. This way, when I feel like I've gotten more control, I can start putting them. So I get larger dots, the thinner ones, smaller ones, as I go towards the body. In that section, if you have a big black area, you just fill it in with more dots. Now, see, it's starting to look really pretty. I'm going to rinse that off, or wipe that off, and I'm going to grab the yellow. A little bit of the yellow on the tip, and I'm just going to barely touch the rock with the tip of my paintbrush. Barely touch it, just so they're tiny, 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 tiny drops, like dots. I'm even going over some of the white ones. Pull them up more. I'm going to dip the yellow again, and I'm going to put a couple of dots along its body. Kind of smudgy dots. And see, I still have that black spot that I kind of starting to become less noticeable. I don't know if you remember, but there was that big black smudge there. It's still there, it's just less noticeable. So I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I'm going to just grab a little bit of tip of blue, and I'm going to go in there, and I'm just going to put a couple dots of blue in there. See, it's just going to define it more. And you can take the blue and do the same thing, just tiny dots. And anywhere where you see where the black went out of boundary, and just cover up. If it's a big area that you have black, you just take a couple, both the blue, different kinds of blues, and put it on your brush, dab it off a little, and dab it around more to cover it up. So that's where we're at right now. And my flower, I did put the white over that black a little bit, so to make it a more crisp look, I'm gonna rinse my brush out. It's starting to, just needs a rinse. And dab a little bit of the black. Actually, I'm gonna put more black on my palette because that one's starting to dry up as well. Just need a drop of it. As you can see, a drop goes a really long way. So with some fresh black, I am going to re-outline these flowers where they need to be re-outlined. Oh, see, I got a big splotch of black just now. I'm gonna wipe it off a little. That's good enough. That's fine. Because now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna add a stem here. And I might go back later and add a flower. I won't do it while I'm on the video with you. Just so that it's not going any longer than it needs to. And actually, I think that it's fine with just 2. This is a good time to look back past and say, oh, do I want another flower and where? It's good to have some empty space. People are scared oftentimes of empty space. It's good to have some. Here's this one. I decided to do 3 on this one. And I also decided to do circular flowers instead of these more pointy ones on that one. So now I'm going to go into the grass. Grass, and I'm gonna take. I'm gonna put my paint. Excuse me, my paintbrush in the jar of water, and I'm gonna grab, I don't know, a few different greens. If you want to know what the greens that I'm using: lime tree, Christmas green, crisp green. I could have grabbed a different couple greens, but I'm not going. I just grabbed them randomly. Don't put too much thought into it. And really, we only need a couple of drops. That was way too much of each color. Alright, so I rinsed out my paintbrush from my pickled jar of water. Recycle, repurpose, reuse. And please, speaking of repurpose, recycle, reuse, please don't take the rocks from forest preserve nature conservation areas. I buy these at a landscaper. I have 3 huge bags of them, huge, and they were about $12 each, and they will last me a long time. So just don't actually. I would just dab a little bit of black. I'm gonna make a couple of these lines again more crisp on the butterfly. I'm gonna wipe it off, and then I'm gonna go to the green, and I'm gonna dip my paintbrush. This is what I did, into the light, the dark, the green, and it's more thick than normal. And I'm going to start from the bottom and pull up. And I'm going to just kind of like squiggle it a little. And see how the different greens come through? The light greens, dark greens. If you find too much light, then, you know, put a little bit more dark on your brush. If you find it too light, put some light on there. And I'm just gonna wipe the bottom. And then redo these squiggles on top. Right now I'm just dipping it in the dark and the light. I'm not putting that medium green in, because as I'm doing the dark and the light, they're mixing and making that medium green anyways. And I'm going to take the medium green and I'm going to follow it down that black line that we made. And I'm going to take the dark green. I'm going to wipe off my brush a little bit. Oh, my rag fell on the floor, so I'm just wiping it on here, on the plastic. So I'm going to take some of the black. Or not black, dark green. And make a couple of leaves. See, not perfect. Don't look perfect. But all together, when you start pulling it together, it's really, really, really nice. Plus, when this is done and after you spray it with a gloss, it makes it look even better. So, I'm pretty much done with the green. I'm going to rinse my brush off because I don't have my rag. I'm rinsing it off on my clothes, and it stains. But this is already stained and a little bit ruined, so it is what it is. And I'm going to take a bit of the black, the new black, not the black that I had that started getting dried up, but the new black that I poured. And I'm going to start outlining only one side of the leaves, only one side of the grasses. Either side, doesn't matter, and it should pull up, so from the bottom up. And if you can't define exactly what